All right, what's up, everybody? We are live. This is like people want to talk about webinars. I love webinars because I think it's the best next thing to actually being on stage. He said Collins has put on the fish hat. I'll put it on after the webinar. Anyway, we got a lot. We have so much to cover. I am live in Boston. G is live in the Las Vegas airport because he's speaking at Serious Decisions in an hour or two, which is amazing. So, look, we have a lot to cover. I'm gonna share my screen. I'm gonna share my screen right now because I want people to see this. So here's the deal. We're gonna get started at 2 p.m., which is right now. But I just want to make sure everybody can hear me okay. So do me a quick favor. If you can hear me right now, go into the chat box. So do this right now. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen so I can make sure I can see everybody. Go into the chat box and put your name in. Put your name in the chat box and let us know where you're writing in from. So I'm Dave in Boston. That's G in Vegas. Felipe, Brazil. Steven in Boston. Priscilla in California. Paris, Ottawa, San Francisco. Josh in Malaysia. Steve in Florida. Hugo in San Francisco. Kevin in Cambridge. Patrick in Toronto. Diego in Brazil. Oh, my God. NYC. Boston, Canada. India, it's 11:30 p.m. in India. Bryson in Tampa. Brooke from Colorado. London. Hendrick in Ottawa. Ian from Chicago. Italy, Catherine from Indianapolis. Are you kidding me? This is unbelievable. I love doing this. We got people from all the way. William in Seattle. It's 11 o'clock at night in India, and they're on here with us. Bruno in Sao Paulo, Brazil, who was the first one on here. I already saw you. Shout out. Anil from San Diego. Oh, my God. I'm already out of breath. Okay. So audio's working good. There's a bunch of people, packed house. We're climbing. We're going to break the record for webinars, I think, today at Drift, which is amazing. So, look, G and I, we wanted to do this because a couple weeks ago we had a conversation, and the number one thing people have asked since G came to Drift in September was, wait a second, how is what you do different than what I do in marketing? And so I don't know if anybody saw what we did to actually promote this webinar, but G took this thing to a whole new level. So I posted, if you see me, I always post LinkedIn videos. I love LinkedIn videos. And G hits me up on Friday and he says, come on, man, you can't even beat me on LinkedIn. He beats me on my own platform, not because he put this outfit on, which is nice, that had some Drift swag, but I'm sure everybody saw this one, which was G full out in his, I don't even know, does this outfit even have a name, G?
Yeah, I think it's completely ridiculous. It's supposed to make Americans think this is French, and it works. It works. People think
it works. Right? And it works. So the next growth hack that you can talk about will be how you got all these people to the webinar by dressing up like a crazy Frenchman. But anyway, that's the deal. So I'm Dave. That's G. That's what we're going to talk about today. But before we get into this, I talked to G before, and we're going to do something crazy. We've never done this together, but we're not going to talk about Drift at all on this webinar. We're not going to sell you anything. But if you do end up upgrading at the end of this month, if you upgrade by May 31st, G or I, you can pick. I would go with G. He's more helpful. We will get on a call with you. If you become a paying Drift customer at the end of this month, Alex is going to send you out an email with all the details after. But if you upgrade, we will get on a phone. We will get on a call. We'll block the first 2 weeks of our calendar off in June so we can talk and see how we can help your business.
30 minutes?
30 minutes. I think it's fair, right? I mean, if you looked at the rate, if you looked at what I would have to get you, would have to pay you to get on that webinar, that call would be pretty good. So
it's an expensive call.
Yeah. All right, G. So look, hey, if you're listening out there, we'll take questions live, put them in Q&A. We have a bunch of questions already, but I want to start with this. G, you tell people about your background. You've been doing this growth thing for a while, but you've mainly been in the B2B space, right?
Yeah, that's right. I've been in B2B for about 2018 for 15 years now, which is a long time. Actually, I started my first job as an intern at Apple was in B2B, online B2B sales, selling Macs, because there was only Macs at the time, online in 2003, at a time where businesses did not want to put their credit card online because they thought it was a risk, and they wanted to call us to give the credit card over the phone. So yeah, it's been a long time. So yeah, I've been doing this B2B online sales forever, which now has split between marketing and growth. In the past, maybe 8 years or so, 10 years. That's called 2008, right? But yeah.
So okay, well, one question, but since you mentioned it, I want to talk about B2B growth, but there is a fun fact which not a lot of people know, but you have a story about you met the man Steve Jobs himself. You haven't washed your hands since then. Give me the Steve Jobs story.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, I met him twice. But the fun story is, I was actually working as a free agent for Apple in 1998 on the Apple Expo, when at the time where Apple did some like events, expos in France, in Paris, where I grew up. I was working for free on displaying, helping people understand, games on Mac. That it was a real platform. Steve like toured like the Apple Expo, came to our booth, and then like that was my opportunity to say hello. And I said hello to Steve. We exchanged a few words, and that was it. I think it's a pretty big moment for me, especially because I was 15.
What? Okay, so all right, so that's your Steve Jobs story. I swear he hasn't washed his hands since. But like, what's the biggest thing that you've learned about, like you're doing B2B growth at Drift? What is the difference between B2B growth and what you might find in a consumer company like Apple, for example, on the consumer side? Like what's the difference between B2B and B2C growth, you think?
Sure. I think the biggest difference is that we think, that marketing is the same and that they're all consumers. But like when someone makes a decision for their business, they're gonna think of things differently. The buying process is different, but like especially the decision-making process is different. It's less, how can I say? It's less done on the spot, right? That you are supposed, you're expected to think more about your options, about what are the consequences of your decision down the line, than for a personal decision, because you're involving other people, which is pretty rare in the B2C scenario. And so the buying cycle is longer, and that's one big takeaway, is that the consequences of what happens, the buying cycle is longer. You move from like on the spot decisions, like for Zappos, like Amazon, which can be done like in a matter of minutes, hours, or even a day, to like most B2B buying cycles are like weeks, if not months, right? And so you've got to create an experience, and you got to like stay top of mind and engage those people for maybe months.
Yeah, so it feels like it's like, I mean, there's still psychology is a big piece of it, but it feels like there is less. It kind of feels like you can do less trickery. Maybe that's not the right word, but like, it's going to be hard for you. B2B seems like you got to be in the right place at the right time, versus like B2C, you might be able to kind of like game me into doing something. I feel like it'd be hard to game me into making a considered B2B process of purchase.
Correct. I think the learnings of psychology, and I mean, you met the man Robert Cialdini, the man who helped us all understand like psychology and selling and buying. I think it's still relevant for B2B, but it's harder to pull off a one-time thing, especially in our world. And I don't want to talk about Drift as a product, but like us as a business, we are a SaaS business. We're a subscription, which means if you pull off something by over-promising and under-delivering, you're going to get 1 month, but that's it. Then there's churn.
Yep.
Right? Yep. And so if you want, I think, and that we can dive into our topic here. What's really important is that the promise, the message, the same thing that's done by marketing, must be aligned with the reality of the product somehow. Because if you stretch that rubber band, too thin, it's going to snap. Because if you say, hey, like, my product is for free forever, you get all features, whatever, and then you hit them with a paywall, well, that doesn't work, right? So I think that's the big difference, is that you got to create, let's say, trust in your brand to reduce churn.
Yeah, we talk. This is a topic we talk a lot about is trust. So one thing that you came to Drift, I want to unpack this. Like, what did you think the difference between, like, when you took the job at Drift, you were coming to a company that had a marketing team already, and you were going to form the growth team. Why do you think people get caught up in, like, this is the number one question we get, but most companies, like, a lot of what you're doing, for somebody that doesn't understand, that doesn't know what we do behind the scenes, a lot of what you're doing would be in the marketing bucket, right? Like, I think of what you're doing as marketing. I think you have a growth person, but you're working on marketing. So was it hard to come into a company where there was already an established growth team? Like, I want to know, like, your thought process coming in, hey, okay, here's where I'm going to fit in. Like, did you have that thought before?
So I think I think Drift is very special. I think you cannot go into any company at our stage and create a team successfully, for sure. I think one of the main, I'd say, takeaways I want people to understand from like the Drift culture is that all teams are aligned on the customer experience, right? And the best proof, of alignment is when people pay us, and that's super important. I think many marketing teams in B2B SaaS are focused just on like an MQL number. They're just focused, on maybe traffic, and they don't care about revenue. And so that makes it really hard for someone like me who's like between marketing and sales, right? But actually, technically, I think it's great you think of me as a marketing person, but I think what would be interesting is if we ask Armin, our VP of sales, does he think of me as a salesperson? Because if both are true, then I've succeeded.
That's true. So, okay. So Daniel is out there and he's upset. Obviously, he said, "Can we start talking about the specifics? Can we start talking about specifics and articulate the difference between growth and marketing?" It's only been 11 minutes, Dan. Come here and break. We got to warm up. We got to have some conversation. We got to build rapport.
Keep going.
This is marketing 101. Okay. What are the how would you like? What are the difference between our teams? Okay, so let's talk about what you own in growth and what I own in marketing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
You start.
I'm just making things up. I think that marketing owns so at Drift, marketing owns the brand, the voice, the website, events, speaking, PR. Those are all pieces of marketing. I think of it as like the marketing team at Drift, whatever your definition for traditional marketing is, that's what we do. But I think of it as the difference between us and growth is that growth has like this group of very technical people who can do some special things that I cannot do on my team.
Yeah, I agree. So I think, when I think of growth, when I joined Drift, as just like when I joined other companies in the past, I make sure that I get engineers on my team. If I do not get engineers, then I'm not creating a growth team.
Yeah.
I'm not creating a difference.
What was the first? Okay, so how many people are on the growth team today? 6, 5?
5.
And the first hire you made was what? An engineer?
And they're all engineers.
So you got 5 engineers.
We have 4 engineers and myself.
And yourself. Okay, so let's do the breakdown. Okay, so G in growth has 4 engineers and himself. In marketing, there are 10 people in marketing focused on 3 or 4 focused on demand generation, an events person, 2 writers, and a website developer. So yeah, we have no outside of John who owns the website. Yeah, we don't have engineers. Yeah, that's interesting.
And if you want to be specific, I actually have out of the 4, I've got 3 which are back-end engineers.
Yeah,
to be very specific, and only 1 who's front-end, which means we are more skewed towards like creating infrastructure.
Yeah.
Than actually creating like a front-end app. So as marketing is completely opposite, and that's really important. And I think if we want to talk about mistakes that people make creating a growth team, I often see like engineering product organizations think, hey, we're going to put junior engineers on the growth team, and then they're like, let's say, graduate out of it into product. That's a mistake, because the things we do in growth are actually extremely complex. We've got to move fast with a small team, and so we actually need a full stack of fairly senior people to succeed. And so if we look into an example, like if we just take an example, like one stuff that we do, for example, and I want to talk about that this thing we launched 2 weeks ago together.
That's good. You use that as an example of how that came to life.
Yeah. So that's something that you did. So you did like the first version of that last year, right?
Yes.
Where you actually outsourced the research to a contractor. And this year we wanted to double down and bring it in house and improve it. And
so let's just rewind for a sec. So we'll tell people. So last year we did this survey of 500 B2B SaaS companies, and we wanted to see how long it took them to respond to leads. And so I didn't have a resource. Like G wasn't here last year. We didn't have any engineers that could dedicate to this. So I just outsourced it. I found somebody externally that could do it. This year, when we had G, we had a growth team, my eyes started to light up. And this actually gives you a good glimpse of how we work together. My eyes started to light up as a marketer because I was like, oh my God, Now with G and the growth team here, we might be able to 10x this project. And so 2 months ago, I came to G with the idea. I said, hey, we want to do this lead response survey 2.0, but we want to do it bigger and better. What's possible? And you kind of scoped the whole thing and then just took it from there and ran with it.
Yeah, and so I think that's the gift of a good growth project, which is there's an opportunity for the marketing team to create awareness, which is not something that I do as growth usually, right? But there's also the opportunity of creating something repeatable, a system, like an evergreen campaign. And for that to work, it means it needs to be automated or as automated as possible. And so we built an entire system and a backend so that we could take a chat from Drift, where someone would drop, their email and the domain they wanted to monitor the response time for, created the backend so that we would automatically make requests, contact requests, demo requests on that site, and then monitor the response time, aggregate all of this, and give the data to Dave and his team, but also make it a website and make it a service for people to be able to see, hey, how does my response time compare to like the data that's in the article, And now we have this getmyresponsestime.com website, which is the service. And you can see how like there was a demand from marketing for some good data and content. We provided that. We get the content, we leverage that, and we use, I'd say, what we built for the next 12 months.
Yep.
And that's very growth.
Yep. And now what's great about that is like now that exists and your team kind of owns it and maintains it. But from a marketing perspective, we can now use that as a lead gen channel and drive traffic there. Which is actually an interesting question. So a lot of people, man, I have a ton of questions. So I'm gonna do rapid fire. We're gonna talk about them.
Okay.
So one question was like, Michael, maybe I don't know how to say it. Okay.
Yeah,
wants to know which metrics. So what metrics do you own, G, and what metrics does my team own in marketing?
In fact, we own the same metric.
Yeah, exactly. So what's interesting is we basically both own. Let's just think of it like this. I should have brought a whiteboard in here, but there's one number that matters. And if you're at the right company, hopefully this is the same number, which is revenue. All that matters is revenue and customers, right? Leads don't matter. Traffic doesn't matter. All that matters is revenue. And so the way that we get to our revenue number is by breaking out marketing is going to commit to X number of leads and growth is going to commit to X number of leads. And together we have to deliver X number of those leads to the sales team in order to give Armin, our VP of sales, confidence that they can hit the revenue number based on that. And so it's really a game of push and pull. For example, like we actually just had a meeting where we were talking about our numbers that we're committing to for May, and marketing is going to deliver a little bit more leads this month than growth, but last month growth delivered more leads than marketing. And so they're kind of inputs into this one bigger number. And that has really helped us align. And also I think when you go back to what we were talking about earlier, where like I see our teams as resources for each other. And so that's what makes it easy to have a shared goal.
Yeah, and just one thing on KPIs and goals, I believe strongly in having shared goals between sales team. It's not like, hey, we're going to dump like those qualified leads to you and then we're off. Eventually, in the end, we're all aligned on the revenue, which means we closely monitor all metrics from like the close rate, the time to close, the average sales price, and we make sure that we deliver leads that are going to close at the right price and the right time, and that does money to be made.
Yep. So we have a executive team meeting on Fridays that we look through the entire funnel together. We look at traffic, pipeline, opportunities, close rate, all by source from marketing and growth. And we look at every channel that way. And so then we can start to see the bigger picture, which is those are just inputs in the bigger revenue number. Gabriel asks, this is a good one for you, G. How do you discern between leads sourced by growth versus marketing?
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. We actually, to be very specific, track leads two ways. One, which is like this company, this account, this lead never existed in our system, so it's a net new lead. And then the first team to find that lead kind of owns it. We look at to speak about attribution words. So we do first touch attribution there. And then if the lead already existed, we're just going to like count all the touches. And so we talk like revenue influenced. And so that's how we look at it.
Good answer. I like that.
There's one that I like here from Eric,
Yeah.
which
Okay.
is, does growth and marketing on personalizing the website, and what does the technology stack look like? I
Yeah.
think there's a good one about, not about so much the tools, but about like there's channels that we work
Yes.
together, right?
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think those channels, what's interesting for, especially for our website, is that growth actually usually does the technology part, like choosing the tool, making sure it works, infrastructure, the tracking, enabling. So what we do is that we enable the marketing team. All right, that's what we do.
Yes.
And then the marketing team owns the words, the copy, the variations. Because like I don't have the copywriters nor the designers for that to happen.
Yep. Okay. So Abdul says this is a pretty good summary. Although I disagree with part of it. So Abdul says, so to get this straight, your North Star metric is revenue, and it's something you both take care of. Dave takes care of brand awareness, and G takes care of acquisition, activation, retention, and referral. Yes and no, because I still own a lead number that if I'm supposed to deliver 5,000 leads to the sales team this month, and I don't, they're going to come to me and say, where are the leads? So think of it like this. We both own a lead number as well. Except those are, when you add those together, that's what you get, the total number of leads we need to deliver to the sales team in order to hit their revenue creation goal.
Yeah. I think one thing the audience might want to hear is like which channels do we own? I think we kind of own like different channels. I think there's like a few overlapping channels, and there's also separate split channels, right?
Yeah.
But I think one thing I want to tell the audience is like, often in growth, I see what we do. The purpose of growth is to be experimental, right? It's to discover new opportunities for lead generation, for revenue, for growth, right? But our purpose as a growth team is not so much to own and maintain stuff over time. We're not really good at that, just because we just don't have the people for that.
Yes.
And so often what we're going to do is that we're going to have a message from DC, from our big man, the boss here, who says, hey, like I heard about this in an event or at a dinner, like I want you guys to test it. And and if it falls on me, I'm going to have the team test it. We're going to come out with the results. Once we actually know whether it works, it doesn't work, then we most of the time need to hand it over. We need to hand it over. Either it's the marketing team, it can be the sales team or the ops team, but we create a lot of stack that we hand over with documentation, say, hey, like ops team or marketing team, here's what we created, here's how it works, and let us know if you need more help. But now we're moving on to something new.
Yep. You know what? I just kind of realized, like, I think the thing about the thing about marketing and growth working together, I think if you are, and I don't know, because I haven't done growth, and so maybe G, you have more experience at prior companies, but like I think if you're out there searching for this perfect like delineation between marketing and growth, you're not going to find it. And I feel like that's where most of the problems happen, when it's like, no, that's marketing job, that's growth's job. I think you have to have a culture, and this got set to us by the founders, which is like, look, we're going to have a team where we have both a marketing and a growth team. You each have unique skill sets. Your mission is to work together to hit one number. And that means that G and I catch up every single week. Our teams talk to each other. And it's very hard to write down and map out because there's so much overlap. So people ask, what channels do we own, right? We might own the website from a design, look, and feel perspective, but the growth team might work on the website with conversion. We both use email. We both use paid. We both create free lead gen tools. We do all these things together. But like, if you look at the lead response grader that we did, that came out 2 weeks ago, like we helped write the copy and help design it and help how that works, where like your team is doing the technical stuff on the back end. And so I think of it as like, this was this crazy vision that David and Elias had to bring our kind of two unique superpowers together. And so I think, like, if you're out there in marketing and growth, I would be looking for an opportunity where, do you want those forces to unite, or do you want to have that, like, no, we're the growth team. We live in the basement. Marketing does over here, and they own the pens and the branded T-shirts and everything. So I'd be looking for an opportunity where, like, we think of it as 1 + 1 = 3, not having two separate teams.
Yeah. And I think that, I've seen some teams create that delineation. I mean, it's possible to create it, but the consequence of that is that you're going to miss on opportunities. I think one of the values of what we're doing here, and especially the value of growth teams in general, is that they touch at the entire funnel, from like really from the top to like the bottom of like retention and re-engagement. and it's been battling churn. And so the value of that, of having a bunch of people who understand that, is that they can help create an experience that's consistent from the very top to the very bottom. And it gets hard as the company gets bigger. But if you're starting to just do a layered cake and stop, then you're actually doing a disservice to your customers, because they're just going to go from one experience to another. It's going to be super different. It's going to be super weird.
Yep. Okay, this was a question from earlier from anonymous attendee. Shout out to you, anonymous attendee. I find it pretty clear exactly how marketing can deliver leads, events, demand gen content. Can you explain exactly which channel growth delivers leads? Yes. So I'll let G talk this. We can't tell you the tools because we have some secret sauce and secret stuff that we're doing. But I'll tee you up with this, G. I think the growth channels, a big focus for G is what people are doing before. Marketing owns once people are on our website, right? Our job is to get people to our website and get them to show intent. But G is working a little bit further up the stack and trying to almost predict when people might become leads for us. Is that a good representation?
Yeah, exactly. I think just take a step back on that question more specifically. What we do in growth is finding channels that are untapped and possibly free, right? Or at least where the cost is non-linear, right? A non-unit cost. And because those are insane channels. And where I found most of those channels to exist, if you think of I read a number recently. It's funny because I'm in Las Vegas right now, and I'm talking through a decision in an hour. But I found out that the average B2B buyer does 12 searches on Google before engaging with the one brand.
That's crazy.
Before engaging with one brand, right? And we at Drift, we know that engagement, because that's where we start, is really, hey, there's an engagement, there's a conversation, right? But before that, of course, we know that there's a life before they hit our website or our customer's website. And it can be a number of different websites, but basically they're trying to understand what they're about to buy or what pain or problem they have. And what I and my team have been focused on is really trying to find out, hey, can we discover some of those 12 touches? Can we buy the data to know, hey, there are maybe 8 times, 10 times more, actually 12 times more of those companies that are expressing that demand somewhere, but not yet to us. And we have found really good sources. We found really good sources of intent that we can then either automate, which means follow up automatically with those companies, say, hey, we exist, or pass on to the sales team if it's an existing account, saying, hey, this company that you already know is expressing intent, buying intent on this channel, or they're looking at a competitor. And so we're getting pretty good now at monitoring what's happening on the interwebs before they come to us.
Yep. I think that's really the superpower is, marketing traditionally is about getting people to your website via those traditional, vehicles, content, PR, speaking, right? You're out there getting stuff before somebody even knows that they need Drift. Okay. I got 2 questions. I'm going to read these 2 questions to you. Oh my God, there's a lot of good ones. Okay. Healy Jones, this is a good question. Gee, have you thought about this at other companies? Maybe your background, why doesn't growth just be a group within marketing? I think I know the answer, but I'm interested in your take.
Yeah, it could be, and I'm not saying it should not be. I think at Drift it could change. I think it depends. I think I could put 2 answers. One is personally, for my personal growth, I want to be able to report to someone who I can learn a lot from. And in growth, that's actually pretty hard, right? Which means there's not many people who can show me and teach me a lot in growth. So if they want to teach me something, either in management or in marketing. And there's a few people it's not often, right? And so I usually try to push back until I find the right person to work for. And then more from a company perspective, I think the challenge is that marketing really kind of lives at the first third or the first half of the funnel, until they usually stop when there is a qualified opportunity handed over to sales, and I think that growth has a lot of opportunity within the sales process to make that better, more efficient, and also down the funnel on the retention, re-engagement. And that's something that marketing team usually marketing teams are not super focused on that.
Yeah.
And I think there's value in having a team which does all of it.
I'll answer. I'll give you the third leg of this stool, which is I also think I think in order for you to be world class at what you are world class, but I think in order for that to happen, you need to be your own thing, to be autonomous and be on your own. Whereas if you're part of another, whether you're part of product or part of marketing, I think that muddies up what you're doing. I think, you need the freedom to be able to go and kind of break stuff, as they say, right?
Yeah, and just one thing on that, which is I often get CEOs call me of hey, should I create a growth team or not? And what I see is that usually there is that desire for a growth team when a company is at between 50 and 200 people, and that usually diminishes after. It's a fact of company size and growth and pace of growth. But one thing that's super interesting is that usually growth disappears in large startups, most often at 500 people, and definitely at 1,000, 2,000 people.
Say more about that. Why?
And that's usually because at 500,000 people, you're starting to have very senior executives, on the leadership, amazing people who have a lot of experience, and there's just not that many people in growth, who have that experience, who have been executives in large companies. And so there's a lot of smart people, but they're younger. And so they don't have what's required to be executives. And so the consequence of that is that they just roll up in one organization, whether that's a VP or a senior VP of sales, of product or marketing, right? And that's just one consequence. They just roll up because there's we in growth, it's a new business. We've been doing, all of us have been doing that for maximum 10 years, most often less. And so we can't claim to have been a senior executive in growth for 20 years. That's bogus, doesn't exist. And so that's just the consequence. It's going to change, in 5 or 10 years. It's going to change. Right now, that's the case. That's what I see.
Yep. Okay. I want to answer this one because I think it says a lot about what we're talking about, which is I can't pronounce his name, but somebody said, would you say retargeting, both display and email, falls under growth or marketing? And I would answer that I have no idea, because that is one particular channel. We don't have it down to this if it's retargeting, it goes here. I would say the way we would approach this is maybe marketing. Why are we doing retargeting? Okay, because we need more leads from this channel. Okay, great. Well, maybe marketing owns that, but I might go tap G and his team because I need some help with the data or some technical piece of it that can really make it better. If it's just me setting up ad roll or Terminus or whatever, I can do that. There's no need to have the growth team there. But if there's an opportunity to make it something special or something bigger, then I think that's where the growth team would hop in. But I think it's too tough to narrow it down and say email lives here, this thing lives here. I don't know. It depends on the goal. We always kind of start with that why.
Yeah, no, that's right. And I mean, I'm in the paid ads channel, and your man Dan, shout out to Dan, does a great job. A good example is that we, as a company, added LinkedIn ads as a channel recently, and Dan just sent some creatives to the agency we use for them to put them online. And I just saw that, said, that's good. And then I said, whoa, stop a second. We haven't talked about tracking. I got to see the URLs. I got to and so I did all of that. I did the tracking the URLs, and then I just monitored and see things happen. So, okay, now that's fine. See, and that's the split. I don't really need to tell Dan what to do. It's not my job, and I don't need to tell him, I don't like this creative. It's not my job either.
Yeah.
However, making sure that Dan is empowered with the right URL so that he will be able to report in 2 weeks the results. I want to avoid him failing. So I can see that something is going to fail because the data is not captured the right way. That's my job to step in and say, let's stop here.
Yeah. And most of those come up where the reason you and I have a weekly catch up is to say, hey, what's your team working on? What's our team working on? Oh, should we help out with that? Okay. Yeah. We kind of borrow resources from each other. Gee, why don't you answer the last question that just came in the Q&A? That one keeps coming up.
So Miguel asked the same question a couple of times. Let's answer that one. Still very interested.
He's answer my question, damn it. Stop avoiding me.
He's right. Yeah. So who works with engineers on the growth team? Is it me, or is it a PM or growth marketers? So A couple of things. Yes, I have a PM. Shout out to Matt, the Burden man, which shaped his bird recently that you might have seen on your videos. He's the PM on Growth right now, and he's freaking awesome. All right. I also work for engineers. I think one of the skills I have is I actually worked in IT security for 2 years, and I have a pretty good technical background. Even though I'm not an engineer, I'm totally capable of working with engineers. I'm good enough that I can, understand and explain what should be done. So usually the exact process is that every 2 weeks, the growth team huddles as a team, and we talk about all the ideas we have. We have this like huge backlog of ideas, and we have a voting process. And we vote on like 2-3 ideas we want to do over the next 2 weeks, right? Then, and whomever is let's say the original ideator will pitch that idea. And often that's me, because my role on the team is to be crazy and have a lot of ideas. The role of the PM, Matt, is to push back, saying that this idea is not going to work because of this, this, and that, or it's going to take us too much time, or we don't have the resources, whatever, right? His role is to eliminate ruthlessly 2/3 of the ideas, all right? And then the third that he accepts, he's going to create a 1-pager that we all agree on and make sure that we are on scope in time, and that the experiment is run properly. That's how we do it, right? And so
this is why I love doing this. People, what you just said, people could bottle up and turn into the #1 blog post on growth hackers, but you just dropped it in 2 minutes for people. That's why I love doing this. This is a good question from Yuri. I think you know him. It seems that what a lot of growth does should be handled by data-driven marketers, like the URL tracking, for instance. And I would say my answer to that is, yeah, sure. Maybe. Sure. I think like the other thing is like we have this set up because this is what works for our team at Drift, right? Like if we were starting a new company from scratch, maybe it does live within marketing. So I think it's more like, hey, David and Elias were able to look at strengths and weaknesses of the current team and say, wow, we could really level up if we added growth here. Yeah, and it's the same. Like for example, now we have a data scientist that we share, and that data scientist actually does not live within marketing, does not live within growth. Actually lives within ops. And so shout out to Blake, and he's awesome. But like I'm not sure that it matters where Blake lives or who he reports to. I think what matters is that his incentives and his goals are aligned to make us successful. And that he's available for us. I think that's really what matters. I think having a data scientist is an important resource. So that's what I'd say. And if that resource is not available, yes, you should definitely make sure that you get one. Yep, 100%. Okay, Arun asked a question. This is like the new strategy, which is like ask your question a bunch of times, then hope that we'll find it. It's kind of like the sales rep following up. Like, did you get my email? Did you get my email? Did you get my email? I'll ask you, G. Arun wants to know, how does the growth and product align? So how do you align with Craig? Yeah, that's a good one. So I speak weekly to Craig, and I think what's interesting is the question could be, is what growth doing product or not product? And it depends. I think it really depends. Something like getmyresponsetime.com isn't really product, all right? But there's something we're working on for next week. And I can lift the covers on that. Starting next week, we're doing an experiment, which I can quickly pitch, which is we're gonna tell the free users on Drift.com that have our JavaScript installed, so they're active but they're free, which are the 5 companies that came to the website that we're gonna send them by email. And I'm looking at Dave's pictures. And so we're going to send them that. And that's super valuable. And the question is, well, that's a re-engagement play for us. But eventually, if it works, the product team is going to hop on and say, hey, we should make this a paid feature. We should not limit that to 5. We should then make it a dashboard in the app. We should have like a table of the top 100 and whatnot. And I'm saying, this is great. And I'll hand you the infrastructure that we have built for that. I'm not going to build a paid feature and maintain it. And there's one reason why I can't do that. I tried in the past and I failed. In the past, I tried doing that. What happens is that I have a small growth team that's nimble, moves fast. If we are forced to maintain
parts of the app and features and parts of the funnel and parts of the marketing everywhere, what happens is each time the product team wants to change something in the app, they got to come to us because it could have consequences. And so instead of being a growth team that empowers the product team, we become the bottleneck, which means we are failing the organization. So I do not want that. I try to actually stay away from stuff that we need to maintain, and I keep the bare minimum infrastructure, and I hand over. So my pitch is, if I can make something extremely exciting, enticing for the product team, they're going to want to own it, and that's my biggest success. I want others to own my projects.
That exactly, and that's why you're your separate team, so you can go out there and be autonomous and do it. Anonymous attendee, shout out to you again, anonymous attendee. I don't know if it's the same anonymous attendee, a different one. How many people work on the growth team versus the marketing team? There's 16 people total, 10 in marketing, 6 on growth. That's the structure. We have team leads inside of each team that kind of manage smaller pods. Natalie, since this is to you, G, I like narrating the questions people ask you. G, is any of your role tied into the growth of the company itself from an ops, hiring, strategy, etc. perspective?
I mean, to some extent, yes. I think we are a resource for any team when they want to make the impossible possible. When they think, hey, we have this manual process, or we have this big blocker, and they're just going to shout a question to us saying, hey, this sounds crazy, but like, can you find a way? And I mean, we're not magicians, like often it's no, but sometimes the answer is yes. Sometimes like we can make some magic happen because we know most systems very well. That's why it's important to have senior engineers and people who have experience on the company. You can't just bring on like 3 new engineers, right? The engineers we have, like I have like Vig, I have like Matt the PM, they've been at Drift for years now. They know the stack, which means that we can, when we talk together, we know the entire like I'd say technical layer, and we can find out a way to make it work. And so we're going to do stuff like, for example, we empower the success team with churn reports. We empower the ops team with automation. We empower the marketing team. And so we do all that, we create it, and we try to make those things possible.
Yep. Okay. I want to wrap up. I want to do one more because I don't want to burn G out. We need him to represent Drift well on stage at the Serious Decisions Summit. Arun says, if I could just keep listening to DGG and DC continuously, please do more of such talks. On a serious note, these have actually been the best webinars we've done where there's no slides. We're just talking through stuff and being real, because that is our strongest marketing channel, and you don't have to prep. It's great. Okay, let me see. Any question that stands out to you, G, that we haven't answered? I see there's so many that I'm sure.
Yeah, I see one quick one, which is, what's your number one recommendation for starting a growth team? I'm going to answer it by saying also, when should you create a growth team?
Okay.
Super important. Create your growth team after you find product market fits, right? Growth is only useful once there's already demand. So the first order is you need a product, and then you need a marketing team. And only then, once marketing works, you need growth. Growth is good at scaling stuff.
Yes.
If you don't have anything to scale, there's no need for growth. Or then you think of growth differently.
I don't know if we've ever talked about this, but a good example of that is last year we had just found product market fit. Marketing team had 5 or 6 people, and I hired a growth PM, which was initially Alexa, into marketing, and that didn't really work out because I didn't know how to manage that person, and we didn't know what to have her do. And now seeing what the growth team is doing, it's like, oh, so if you think of it, that progression, product, then marketing, then growth, that makes way more sense to me. And there's a clear, clear hole and need. Yeah. Okay. We're going to wrap up only because I want to save G. Thank you, everybody. This was amazing. Maybe we'll do it again. Maybe we'll make this a monthly thing. Maybe we'll make this a monthly thing. Q&A. G, go kill it.
Kill the screen share so I can show people where I was.
Okay, hold on. Stop sharing. Okay, go ahead.
There you go.
Go ahead.
There you go.
Okay.
I just did just to know how you do things. I just did a webinar from the Las Vegas airport. There's 120 people listening to me, and I was just on the Wi-Fi. So like, you don't need like crazy stuff like Dave in the podcast room. I'm just here. And there's
whose audio is better? Listen to this crispy sound. All right, G. I'll see you later. Bye, everybody. Thanks for doing it. See ya.